Marriage is the final moment of love and the first moment of responsibility. That sentence lingered in my mind throughout our honeymoon. It was something he had written in the wedding card he gifted us. My husband and I both found it charming in a philosophical sort of way. He even recorded it to play back for our friends and relatives. I understood the meaning, but deep down, I disagreed. I couldn't accept that a wedding marked the end of love. I was determined to prove to him otherwise, to show him that love, longing, yearning, and the sweet ache of desire didn't die at the altar, but continued, stronger, in our marriage. When I returned to work, I saw him again, him. The one who wrote that line. I had always known he was thoughtful, deep, and eloquent, even if I didn't always agree with what he said. The way he said things always left an impression. I liked what you wrote, I told him, but don't you think it needs a deeper explanation? I can't quite agree with it as is. However you understand it, he said calmly, that's what it means. What do you mean by that? His quietness made me irritated. So I thought more deeply. I remembered something else he once said, that marriage is a contract of the self. When we declare our marriage, it's a declaration of ownership. A statement that my husband is mine, and I am his. It's binding, unbreakable, and humans are strange. When something isn't ours, we long for it desperately. But once we have it, we often forget to cherish it. I told him that. You're smart, he said, smiling. You mean, as long as there's longing, insecurity, fear of losing someone, that's when love is truly alive. Right? He nodded. Well, I continued, maybe that's how you see love. But I don't. The longer I'm with my husband, the more obsessed I become with him. That's great, he said. If everyone were like you, there'd be no infidelity in the world. I pouted in protest. I knew I could never win a debate with him, but he always let me have the last word. Still, this time, I stopped. Because suddenly, I felt like he was missing something. Something about me. I shifted the subject. I hate women who cheat. I said, they're shameless, irresponsible, they betray their husbands and insult their families. You hate them that much? Since I was a child. He didn't say much after that. Just listened as I vented all my anger about adulterous women, with all the righteous passion of someone newly married and deeply in love. I was married to a good man. A truly good man, the kind of husband every woman hopes for. In the first few months of our marriage, I felt like the luckiest woman alive. He loved me, supported me, and gave me everything I needed. But sometimes, happiness comes so easily that you forget how fragile it is. That day, I came home a bit earlier than usual. As I entered our apartment, I could hear soft laughter from inside, a woman's laughter. My heart didn't panic. Maybe it was just a friend, I thought. But as I stepped into the living room, I saw her. She was sitting comfortably on our couch, wearing my husband's shirt. My husband was in the kitchen, making coffee, like nothing was wrong. When he saw me, he froze. Time stood still. You're home early, he said awkwardly. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just looked at her. Then looked at him. Who is she? I asked. My voice calm, too calm. It's not what you think. He stammered. But it was exactly what I thought. In that moment, everything inside me collapsed. Every vow, every smile, every sweet morning kiss, I had believed in forever. I had believed that he was mine, entirely mine. And now, that illusion shattered like glass. I left. I didn't know where to go. I just walked. The city was cold that evening. Or maybe it was just me. I wandered aimlessly that night, my heels clicking against the wet pavement like a steady heartbeat. The city lights blurred through the tears I refused to let fall. My phone buzzed in my pocket, his name flashing on the screen again and again. I didn't answer. Instead, I ended up in the most unexpected place. A quiet bar tucked away between two old bookstores. The kind of place that smelled of aged wood, silence, and regrets. That's where I saw him again. The man who once said to me, "Marriage is the end of love." Back then, I had rolled my eyes at his cynicism. I had thought he was just bitter. Or maybe lonely. But tonight, under the dim amber light, his words echoed in my mind like a prophecy fulfilled. "Rough night?" he asked. Not unkindly, as I sat beside him. I laughed, a dry, cracked sound. You could say that. He didn't press for details. Instead, he poured me a drink, slid it over without a word, and let the silence wrap around us like an old, familiar coat. I don't remember how long we sat there, only that for the first time in hours, I felt seen. He didn't try to fix me. He didn't tell me to forgive, or forget, or fight for love. He simply sat there, his presence steady and calm. "You remember what I said that day?" he asked suddenly. "About love dying after marriage?" I replied, forcing a smile. He nodded. "Turns out, sometimes love dies long before the vows are spoken." I stared at him, heart suddenly heavy with unspoken truths. Was he speaking from experience? Was I just one in a long line of people who had believed in something that never truly existed? Or was he the only one who had seen clearly from the start? The night grew heavier, as if the sky itself shared my sorrow. The bar slowly emptied, but neither of us moved. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't need to. There are moments when silence says everything. He reached into his coat pocket and lit a cigarette, offering one to me. I shook my head. He smiled, just a small, sad curve of his lips. "You don't belong in pain," he said quietly. The words hit me harder than I expected. I looked away, swallowing the tight lump in my throat. I didn't want kindness right now. Kindness broke me faster than cruelty ever could. He stood up and looked down at me. "Come on," he said. "Let's go. I'll walk you somewhere safe." I didn't ask where. I just followed. We ended up at his apartment, a small, tidy place filled with books and jazz records. Nothing fancy, but it felt strangely warm. He handed me a towel for my damp hair, poured us both tea this time instead of whiskey, and we sat in the quiet hum of the heater. Then, he said it. "You don't have to talk. But if you do, I'll listen." That was it. Something broke in me, or maybe something finally opened. I didn't even realize I was crying until I felt his hand, warm, firm, gently wiping away a tear. And before I could stop myself, I leaned into him. Not for passion, not for love, but for comfort. That dangerous kind of comfort that creeps in through the cracks left by someone else. His arms wrapped around me like a silent answer to a question I hadn't dared to ask. And that night, I didn't sleep alone. When I opened my eyes, the first thing I saw was the soft morning light pouring through the window, and then him. Asleep on the couch. He hadn't touched me again after that moment of comfort. No demands. No expectations. Only silence and presence. I sat up in the unfamiliar bed. The weight of everything crashing down all at once. Guilt, relief, confusion, and underneath it all, a terrifying sense of peace. Was this wrong? Or was this the first right thing I'd done in a long time? I wandered into the small kitchen. He was already there, brewing coffee, his eyes tired but kind. "You don't owe me anything," he said before I could even speak. That sentence, simple as it was, shattered me. No man had ever said that to me before. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "Don't be," he replied. "You were just human and hurting." We stood there for a while, the sound of the coffee dripping into the pot the only thing between us. I thought I would feel ashamed. I thought I would feel dirty. But instead, I felt understood. And that terrified me more than anything else. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't want to be rescued by love. I wanted to be left alone, in peace, with someone who didn't expect me to be anything more than I was. That morning, we said goodbye without promises. No one cried, no one clung, just two people, crossing paths at the perfect time, or the worst time, depending on how you look at it. But one thing was certain. He didn't save me, but he gave me space to breathe. And sometimes, that's more than love could ever do. Life returned to its usual rhythm. The office buzzed with the same meaningless meetings. The streets hummed with the same dull noise. I wore the same clothes, smiled the same smiles, and drank the same bitter coffee every morning. But inside, something had shifted. I kept seeing him, not in real life, but in the cracks between moments. In the stillness of early morning. In the echo of a jazz song playing at a random cafe. In the way someone lit a cigarette with one hand. He wasn't haunting me. He wasn't chasing me. But somehow, he was there. Not like a ghost. More like a quiet memory that refuses to fade. You don't belong in pain. Those words looped in my mind. Uninvited. Like a melody that played only when I was most alone. I didn't text him. I didn't call. But I replayed that night in my head more times than I cared to admit. Not for what happened, but for what it meant. He didn't save me. He didn't seduce me. He saw me, and then let me go. That kind of presence? It's rare. It's dangerous. Because once you've felt it, you can't unfeel it. There were moments I reached for my phone. Paused. Deleted the message before even writing it. What would I even say? I couldn't name what we had. It wasn't love, but it wasn't nothing, either. And maybe that's the hardest kind of connection. The one that lives in the in-between. It happened on a Thursday. One of those days that feels like a loop, work, errands, coffee, repeat. I was walking out of a bookstore, clutching a novel I wasn't sure I'd read, when I heard someone call my name. Nina? I froze. The voice was warm, familiar, and terrifying in its softness. I turned. There he was. Same eyes, same quiet presence. But something had changed. He looked lighter, not happier, necessarily, just more settled, like someone who had made peace with a few things. I forced a smile. Hi. He smiled back. No hesitation, no awkwardness. Just him. Didn't expect to see you again. He said gently. Same. I replied. But, not unwelcome. We walked to a nearby bench. No pressure. No unspoken expectations. Just two people, sitting side by side. The silence between them strangely comfortable. He didn't ask why I never called. I didn't ask if he'd moved on. Instead, we talked about books, about coffee, about how the weather had been weird lately. Nothing deep, nothing dramatic. And yet, everything in me was screaming. Ask him if he's okay. Tell him you still think about that night. Say something real, for once. But I didn't. Because maybe that's the curse of these almosts. They linger, not because they're unfinished, but because they ended exactly when they were meant to. As we stood up to leave, he looked at me and said, I hope you're being good to yourself now. That broke me in ways I wasn't prepared for. No man had ever hoped that for me. I'm trying, I whispered. He smiled, nodded once, and walked away. This time, I didn't watch him go. I let him leave, not because I didn't care, but because I finally did. After that brief reunion, something shifted. Not dramatically. No tears. No impulsive confessions. Just a quiet unraveling. Like when you finally exhale after holding your breath for too long. And realize you've been suffocating for years. I didn't cry that night. Instead, I cleaned my apartment. I threw out old clothes. Deleted numbers I no longer needed. Unfollowed people who only reminded me of who I used to be. Then I sat down, made a cup of tea, and stared out the window. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't feel empty, not full, but not hollow, either. Somewhere in between, and that was progress. Healing, I realized, doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes, it's just choosing not to reopen the wound for the 100th time. I started journaling. I said, no, more often. I stopped apologizing for taking up space. I didn't text him. I didn't hope he'd text me. But sometimes, in the still moments, brushing my hair, folding laundry, walking alone, I thought of his words. I hope you're being good to yourself. And instead of sadness, I felt warmth. Not because I missed him, but because he reminded me that I was worthy of softness, even from myself. That was the turning point. The moment I stopped waiting for someone to choose me, and chose myself instead. It wasn't sudden. There was no grand awakening. No magical sunrise that whispered, "This is it. Your new life starts now." No, it was quieter than that. It looked like waking up on a Sunday and realizing you didn't feel heavy anymore. It looked like laughing, genuinely laughing, at a joke someone made. Without thinking, he would have said it better. It looked like letting someone new buy you coffee, and not comparing his smile to someone else's. It was messy. Sometimes, I still had moments where I reached for the past out of habit. But each time, I reminded myself, that chapter closed for a reason. I didn't rush. I didn't jump into another relationship just to feel needed. Instead, I dated myself, took myself out to dinner, danced barefoot in my living room, bought books I didn't need and flowers I didn't plan to photograph. I stopped trying to be someone's dream girl, and started becoming my own safe place. People noticed. "You seem lighter," they'd say. "You're glowing." And maybe I was. Because I had finally stopped chasing closure from people who couldn't even give themselves peace. And in that space, that beautiful, silent space, I found freedom. Not the kind that comes from running away, but the kind that's earned. When you stay, and face the quiet, without flinching. He wasn't loud. He didn't arrive like a storm or a firework. He just showed up. Soft smile, steady voice, kind in a way that didn't demand attention. The kind of man you might miss if you were still looking for chaos. He asked me questions no one else did. Not, "Where do you work?" but, "What makes you feel most like yourself?" He didn't try to fix me. He didn't try to rush me. When I told him I used to mistake attention for affection, he just nodded and said, "I'll give you space to unlearn that." We talked for hours. About books, fears, late-night cravings, songs we never skip. But most importantly, we didn't talk about our exes like wounds still bleeding. We spoke of them like lessons. Not regrets. Just growth. One night, he reached for my hand, not to claim me, but to say, "You don't have to walk alone anymore." And I believed him. Not because he promised forever, but because, for the first time, I didn't need forever to feel safe. Love didn't feel like falling anymore. It felt like arriving, not because I finally found the right person, but because I became the right version of myself. To meet love with both feet grounded. It wasn't a special day. Just a rainy Tuesday. The kind of rain that made the streets shimmer, but not enough to cancel plans. The kind that made coffee taste warmer, and words feel heavier. We met at that small bookstore cafe downtown. The one with mismatched chairs and soft jazz in the background. I got there first. He walked in, water in his hair, holding 2 cups of tea because I didn't know what you'd like, so I brought options. We didn't kiss. We didn't hold hands. We just sat there, sipping tea, talking about nothing, and everything. The rain hit the windows. I looked at him, not like a movie scene, but like a person looking at another person and thinking, maybe, I don't have to guard my heart so tightly anymore. There was no grand declaration. No, I think I'm falling for you. But when he reached over, brushed a leaf out of my hair, and simply said, "You're safe here," I felt something shift. Not butterflies, not fireworks, just peace. The kind of peace that tells you, you don't have to earn love with your pain anymore. You don't have to perform to be chosen. You just get to be. They say love fades, that after the spark, all that's left is routine. And maybe they're right, but they forget to mention how beautiful routine can be when it's with the right person. No more sleepless nights wondering if he'll text back. No more reading into tone, guessing what silence means. Just trust. And small things, like him remembering how I take my coffee. 2 sugars, no cream. Like me leaving sticky notes on his mirror that say, "You're doing great. I believe in you." We don't always have long conversations anymore. Sometimes we sit in silence. And it's not awkward. It's comforting. We still argue about what movie to watch, or whose turn it is to do the dishes. But he never walks away angry. And I don't go to bed feeling alone. He doesn't make my heart race like the boys I used to chase. He makes it rest. Love, I've learned, isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's, "I got you a snack because I know you forget to eat when you're busy." It's showing up, over and over, even when it's not convenient. Even when it's not exciting. Because the right love doesn't try to impress you. It chooses you, even when the spark becomes steady. I used to think he was the miracle, the answer, the thing that healed me. But the more I look back, the more I realize, the magic wasn't him, it was me. I was the one who picked myself up after every heartbreak, who held my own hand through sleepless nights and silent tears. I was the one who kept showing up for work, for life, for people who didn't always show up for me. I was the one who kept loving, even when it hurt, even when it would have been easier to go numb. He didn't fix me. He didn't rescue me. What he did was remind me that I was never broken in the first place. "You're not hard to love," he said. "You've just been trying to bloom in the wrong seasons." And for the first time, I believed it, not because he said it, but because I had started to believe it myself. Even before he came, he just saw what I had finally begun to see. Maybe that's what love really is. Not someone coming to save you, but someone standing beside you as you save yourself. And maybe the truest kind of magic is realizing you were the miracle all along. To the woman who keeps giving love and getting crumbs in return, I see you. To the one who over-explains, over-apologizes, overcompensates, just to be enough for someone who won't choose you fully. You are not hard to love. They were just never ready for the kind of heart you carry. You shouldn't have to shrink to be accepted, or tiptoe around someone's silence, wondering what you did wrong, when all you did was care too deeply. Stop begging for bare minimum. Stop calling it love when it feels like anxiety. Stop settling for being chosen last, when your soul was meant to be cherished first. You are not too much. You are not too emotional. You are not too intense. You are fire. And yes, some people will get burned, but the right one will bring kindling, not water. They'll sit beside you, match your warmth, and never ask you to dim. So here's your permission to stop chasing people who walk away, to stop confusing attachment with affection, to stop believing that you have to earn love. You don't. The right kind of love won't make you doubt your worth. It will remind you of it every single day. For the longest time, I thought love meant giving everything, bending until I broke, shrinking myself so someone else could feel bigger. I called it compromise, but really, it was abandonment of myself. But not anymore. I've learned to love with boundaries, to open my heart, without leaving the door wide open for people who never plan to stay. To give, without draining. To forgive, without forgetting who I am. Because real love doesn't ask you to vanish. It asks you to show up, fully. And when it's right, it won't feel like a battle for attention. It'll feel like peace. Not butterflies. Not anxiety dressed as passion. But calm. Consistency. Safety. The kind of love where you don't have to guess. Or perform. Or pretend to be easier. Quieter. Smaller. The kind of love that meets you where you are, but gently helps you rise. I no longer want someone to complete me. I want someone who meets me whole. And walks beside me. Not in front. Not behind. But together. Dear me. The one who stayed too long. Who kept waiting for a message. A sign. A reason not to walk away. You weren't weak. You were just hoping. And that's nothing to be ashamed of. I know how tired you were. Of trying to be lovable enough. Of thinking, if I'm more quiet, less emotional, more patient, maybe this time they'll stay. But I want you to know, you were already enough. Even then, especially then, the problem wasn't you. It was the places you tried to plant your heart, where nothing ever really grew. You gave too much, to people who gave you just enough, to keep you close, but never enough to make you feel safe. But guess what? You made it out. You healed. You found peace in solitude. Before you ever found it in another person. And now? Now you don't chase. You don't beg. You don't shrink. You speak your truth. You honor your needs. You choose yourself. Because you finally realized, being loved by someone else will never matter more than loving yourself enough to walk away when it hurts. So thank you for surviving what nearly broke you. I'm proud of you. You were never too much. You were just too real for the wrong ones. This time, I won't confuse chaos for passion. I won't stay just because I'm afraid to be alone. This time, I'll listen to the silence between words. To how I feel after the call ends. Not just during it. I'll notice the patterns, not the promises. I won't fight to prove I'm worthy. Because I already am. I've learned. Real love won't make me beg. Or shrink. Or question my worth. It won't come with conditions disguised as affection. It won't punish me for having needs. Or call me too sensitive for feeling deeply. It'll feel like exhale. Like home. Like truth. This time, I'll choose someone who sees me clearly. Not through fog, but in full sunlight. Someone who doesn't need to be chased, convinced, or decoded. Someone who loves out loud. Consistently, calmly, kindly. And if I don't find that, that's okay too. Because I finally found something far more rare. The version of me who no longer settles.